Hello, it's the Tuesday Dev Stream. I'm Duke, and join with me is none other than Mike, Metagame Mike.
Hello.
Yeah, and so you maybe read the title, or maybe you've seen a video that we've done with Mike before. If you haven't heard, he's the lead animator on Arcadia, but he is also one of our main animators. Is that a proper description of you?
That's one way to do it. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to give yourself the description?
Nah, you nailed it.
Okay, cool. So I guess before we get into like Arcadia and talking about all the details of her and things like that, let's talk about what it means to be a lead animator, because people might just see that and go, "Oh, so you just," and it happens, and then. So
Yeah.
what does that mean? What is it? What do you do?
Totally. So, lead animators here at BMG, we kind of do things pretty differently than a lot of other places would. So, first off, there's no like lead animator position. All the character animators take turns being the lead. So, for example, I was lead for Arcadia, but Moonin, our previous legend, I was not. That was, I believe, Brandon and SJ. And then Reno, before that, I was lead again. So we'll kind of tag team. We'll take turns being the lead character animator, and that kind of makes sure that like we make a lot of different types of legends that appeal to more broad, types of players. But also, another pretty wild thing that we do here is that the character animators are also the people that basically draft up the attacks themselves. So the character animators are, in a lot of ways, also combat designers.
Okay, yeah, I know you work alongside our lead combat designer very often, TWK. So you talk with him and kind of like come up with an idea. Like, how exactly does it work? If you're lead animating, so say I said you're lead animating the next thing, go. How does that work?
Okay, yeah. So how that would generally work is once we figure out what the legend is, or at the very least what the weapons are and what the kind of vague idea of what we want to do is, then the lead animator would start just sketching out ideas, quick thumbnails, really quick doodles basically to figure out, okay, what kind of stuff could this character do? Not even like, this is the side sig, this is the neutral sig, but like just kind of vague ideas. And then after that, we kind of throw that out to a bigger group and be like, okay, is this interesting? Is this kind of fun? Is this unique? What kind of direction should we go in? And then after that, we'll kind of narrow it down to, okay, let's make this a side sig. Let's make this a neutral sig and kind of tweak it to make it work for those inputs. And that's the point where the lead animator and the combat designer would kind of go back and forth and figure out, okay, is this like, does it make sense for this to go in the game? Is it, would it feel good to do? Is it balanceable? And then we pretty much go from there.
Okay, so I think you touched on a couple of things, and I'm going to ask you like real quick. What usually comes first? The weapon pairing, the concept of it, like a bug space bounty hunter or bird character. Like, what usually is your like starting point, or is it kind of just different with each thing?
It actually is pretty different. Like usually we start with weapon combo, but more recently we've been favoring starting with a character archetype first. And then we'll figure out, okay, what's the weapon pairing that makes the most sense for them. I think in the past, we did pretty much 9 times out of 10, we'd do, okay, we need this weapon pairing next. And we'd figure out something, we'd figure out an archetype that works well for that. But as we make more and more and more legends, we ended up in this position where it's like, we would come up with a cool legend archetype idea, but like, it would be hard to fit them into the weapons we want to make at the time. And so more recently we've kind of shifted to, let's make a cool bird guy, let's make a cool bug cowboy, let's make a fairy queen, and then we figure out the weapons second.
Okay, and then usually just behind the scenes on like deciding on a character archetype, it's usually like a couple of like buzzword phrases, right? Like kind of you said like space bug or fairy queen, or like you just have like this archetype, not necessarily like a clear picture of, oh, it's gonna be a guy with 4 arms, or it's gonna be this lady with a crown, or things like that.
Right. It's pretty much just like a jumping off point. We usually keep it pretty vague in the beginning, just so we don't like immediately kind of corral ourselves into something restrictive. And then as we progress, we'll kind of narrow it down from there. And a lot of the times how we progress, what that archetype ends up being, is directly related to what type of SIG ideas we come up with.
Okay. So you talked a lot of like high level stuff about like concepting and things like that. And I do want to ask, because I think I've had a conversation with multiple of our animators. You know, we've done a couple of behind the scenes things. And I know that you have a different process with concepting than some of the other animators. Like when I used to talk to Daryl, Daryl did it all on rig versus you, who you sketch it out. Can you talk a little bit about the differences in that and like, and yeah, explaining those things?
Yeah, totally. So for those who don't know, on rig means instead of just sketching thumbnails, we go straight to our character puppet, which basically tells the game this is where the body parts go. And Daryl likes to go straight to that, which I think is kind of wild, but you know, he makes it work. I prefer to do loose sketches because it's faster. I can get ideas out quicker. And I feel like I just end up staying a bit more loose, which I think is beneficial to the brainstorm process.
I don't know what we have in terms of behind the scenes things, but we'll probably show y'all some of those sketches. Okay.
It's a mix of both.
Yeah, okay, because we do have like I've seen a lot of your behind the scenes work, and usually it's like effectively you go into what like Illustrator and you kind of draw like this is the character and you want it to kind of move in this direction and then maybe move up or whatever, right? Something
Flash,
like that.
but yeah.
Yeah, okay, Flash, and then on the other side, kind of again reiterating the whole puppet concept because nobody understands anything that we use in terms of technical terms. But like essentially it's like the character rig, right? Like people who have seen those like internals know like Brawl Boy, things like that. It's just kind of like this little thing. You can see the skeleton essentially and like move the arm and like it'll kind of connect and move those parts. Is that a good assessment of what a puppet is? And
right. Yeah. So basically when we animate character stuff, we only have one character that we animate and then the game tells the game, I guess. The game is informed that, okay, swap out these base puppet pieces with whatever legend this is for. So yeah, y'all will see in a couple of the clips. The Brawl Boy in action.
I'm going to pause for a sec and see if there's anything else people want to know high level about what a character animator is, what exactly you do, before we get into specifically talking about like Arcadia and some of the stuff you did for the creation of her. Just looking at chat real quick. Okay, I'm not seeing anything specifically. What is high level? How do you become a character animator?
BMG hires you. I don't know.
Well, I guess okay. What is generally the route to going from I am guy who is in college and maybe I like drawing to character animation in Flash to specifically, you know, like there because
like
3D modeling
path
wouldn't exactly be, I would say, part of the pipeline to getting into character animation at BMG, right?
I mean, it could be because, you know, a lot of animation principles carry over. So a lot of folks that start in CG could move to 2D. That's actually what I did. I started in CG and when I was in college. And then, like, when I was a senior, I was like, I miss drawing. So I hard pivoted back to 2D. And then I think I, like, met Matt at a PAX or something. And oops, here I am.
Let's see. Just go to PAX. Problem solved.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. On that note, let's start talking about specifics of Arcadia, right? So we talked a little bit about, like, you came in, you had this idea of having these weapon pairing. What were some of the first signatures you started, like, sketching out? And I think we're going to get to see some of the sketches behind us as well.
I don't super remember the order, but I guess we can start with whatever one we... Oh, there we go. Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
What is happening? Okay, Beetle. Beetle was definitely an early idea. I know, like, when we were talking about promotion for Fairy Queen, before we even had an idea of what she looked at, things like that, Beetle was one of the things people latched onto really hard.
Yes, I remember the Beetle side sig was one of the moves that came from the initial brainstorm spread. We knew from the get-go that we wanted some sort of royal legend.
Okay.
From the Feywild. And so one thing that kind of evoked that is some sort of kind of pompous, big, flashy royal steed. And one of those ideas was a beetle. I think at one point she had like a magic horse. She had a couple other different creatures. We kind of tried it out, but beetle had a lot of fans, so we stuck to beetle. we kind of solidified Beetle pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's big and fun, it's unique. And you can see this posing here is actually a lot different from what's final.
Yeah.
I think this is the first iteration of the move.
I was going to say, this does look very different from what it ended up being, right? Like, you've got this throne behind her, and even, like, this waving flag and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. So one interesting thing about Arcadia's development is that the thing that changed about her most throughout development was the character's kind of attitude. Whereas, like, moves like the Beetle were kind of set early, but how they did it ended up evolving quite a bit.
Okay.
Originally, she was kind of this more kind of pompous, almost kind of over-the-top, kind of like a Alice in Wonderland queen off with her head kind of character.
Okay, yeah. So very, like, proud and almost...
very prim.
The opposite of benevolent.
Yeah, yeah. Very kind of, like, hands-off, like, go, my minions.
Yeah, you do the thing for me.
Yeah, and that's actually where the trap sigs came into play. That kind of helped us brainstorm, like, okay, what's like a cool, unique thing we can do for this character that a queen would do, and kind of sending out minions in the form of this kind of the fairy swarm traps. That's kind of how that came about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about this Beetle before we go to the next one?
Nope.
I think it's cool. You can see like your initial hitboxing ideas as well. Like, I'm assuming that's what that fire is. Let me try to.
Oh yeah, I always like to.
Yeah, so you
sketch.
see this little red. I'm assuming that's all hitboxing.
Right. Yeah, I like to do like character sketching in blue, hitbox sketching in red, and then like special effects in white, so they contrast each other really nicely.
Oh, okay.
And it's like even with these scribbles, you can still tell what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. All right. Let's go to. Is this button? Oh,
here we
okay.
go.
I think this is a trap one. I think I'm still playing it at 50%. Apologies.
Ooh,
oh,
that's
this is
that's the charge variant side sig.
Okay. So tell me about this. What made you decide A, to get a charged variant at all, and B, to go with that as the charged variant?
So the charge variant idea kind of came around as a sort of way to reinforce the minion-esque aspect of her. Like, she fights, but she's greatly assisted by her fairy swarms.
Okay.
And one idea to sort of reinforce that is that she does a big swing on tap, where fairies kind of swarm around her sword. So I was kind of trying to think of an idea of, okay, if we want to do a charge variant, how do we do that but more?
Mm-hmm.
And so one idea is she just swings twice. One idea is she kind of flings out the fairies that gather on her sword outwards, and that's what the projectile is. And so that's, as you can see, that's the one we went with.
Yeah. Okay, so I see that the fairies went from being like a spirally thing to being more of like a ball of fairies.
Mhm.
Was it always fairies, or did you try other like ideas of like, I don't know, a beetle or a magic horse, or, you know, like we have a wave shark that comes out. Like, did you have other ideas, or?
This one's stuck to fairies because it was kind of the only thing that made sense.
Okay. I mean, she is the fairy queen.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to say about this one?
Nope, let's keep moving.
Got it. All right, this is the trap one. Free. What? Okay, first you got to answer that one.
Free. Okay, so since it had been a really long time since we made trap sigs, like Yumiko was made before I was even on the team, before we even left beta.
Oh.
So I wanted to illustrate to folks, like, the whole point of this is that you can move when the hitbox of the attack is still active.
Oh, so that's what free is. Now she's free to move.
Exactly. Free.
And not she's free to play, or she's a free character.
Right. At least not this week, you know. She'll hit rotation.
Maybe she'll hit the rotation.
She'll hit rotation eventually. But yeah, so that's what the free is conveying there. Like, you can follow up now, even though the hitbox is still there.
Okay, real quick, on the mention of traps, I talked about it when she was being revealed, things like that, and people are still confused on what makes her traps different from, say, like Volkov's scythe down sig. What can you explain why his isn't a trap and hers is?
Because Daryl made it that way.
No, like what does it mean to be a trap? Not why we chose not to make it a trap.
I love Volkov, by the way. I think he's my favorite Daryl character.
Oh, okay.
He's so good. I use him a lot for twos.
Daryl makes great characters.
He does. Shout out to
Shout out
Daryl.
Daryl.
Sorry, what was the question? No, I remember.
Okay.
So a big difference between, when you miss both, they kind of look pretty similar, but what makes a signature, a trap signature, is that it has fixed impulse. It does not launch you at a great distance no matter what your damage is. And the whole point is to hit them with another move afterwards. Whereas Volkov's down scythe, you hit them with the initial one, he'll swing and blast you away. That'll KO eventually.
Okay. Okay. So the variable force on it is one of the big things,
Yep.
and then I would say that probably like the ability to move, right? Because like you said, while it's still active, you got free pop up over your head and you can run around.
Exactly.
Whereas for Volkov, not so much a thing.
Right. Yeah. With Volkov, you automatically do the follow up, but which is a little easier for a lot of people. But the benefit of the trap is that you have much more options of what type of follow up you want to do instead of just the automatic swing.
Okay. One other thing I want to bring up, if we can bring up the graphic of this SIG early design, where in the testing did the jump up come in? Because I know the final one, it's got a pop up, and I noticed that this one doesn't.
Yeah. So we kind of knew, just like Yumiko, we wanted both D-SIGs to be the trap. Because we usually reserve D-SIG for like kind of the stranger, less conventional moves for a lot of characters. And so we kind of looked at both weapon kits and we kind of tried to figure out, okay, what's the most beneficial position and size and where you are and where the trap is. And we determined that for Greatsword, the optimal position is this, basically, where it is in this drawing for Spear. And so to help differentiate those, we wanted to make Spear alter the player's position a little bit.
Okay.
Instead of altering the trap position. Because that's another difference between Arcadia and Yumiko. Yumiko, well, actually, no, because she jumps back on the bow one.
Well, that's what I was going to... Okay, so you have the two, and it sounds like you wanted to kind of differentiate the two. For Yumiko, it's like bow has them on the ground, whereas the hammer one has those three in an arch in front of her. So it's very clear, like, okay, this is the hammer down sig versus the bow down sig.
Right.
But it seems like you had the pop up, that extra movement to kind of make it clearly like this is the spear down sig versus like the greatsword down sig plus.
Right, right. And Spear in particular benefits more from popping someone up when you're up in the air with them, because you can do like a side air or a nair. You can do like, I think, any aerial out of it, and it's true. It's pretty wild. You can do GC Enlight. GC Enlight Chase Dodge Sair is my personal favorite.
Oh, all right, chat. I haven't seen anyone do that yet.
That's a three-piece. That's a
y'all
true
need to.
three-piece.
I need to see that on Twitter and then take credit for it.
Yeah.
And then Mike didn't tell you it. That's cool. I have not seen anyone do. I saw someone try to do the down sig in a GC side light, but I have not seen a GC end light into Chase Dodge Sair.
Downsig GC Sidelight Sair is a nice one too.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of real fun, creative stuff you can do with it.
I like that. I mean, that's one thing that's really cool about having utility SIGs like this, SIGs that give you a lot of creative freedom. All right. Anything else you want to say about this before we move on?
Nope. Let's keep going.
Let's go. We got it. Did it change? It did change. It's okay. This is just the tap version of the Greatsword side SIG. What you want to say about this?
So yeah, a lot of times when I'm coming up with signatures, it'll come from a place of, I used this weapon before, and man, I kind of just wish I had a move that did this. So this is one of those examples where a lot of the times, especially for folks who aren't like super good with Greatsword, you'll find yourself doing like opener, bridge, dash, opener, bridge, dash, opener, bridge, and you're like, I just need to send them away. They're at like barbecue. You'll kind of, it's easy to kind of like get stuck in that loop for a little bit, and you kind of don't know how to just knock them away. So having a pretty straightforward, relatively simple SIG that just goes, bah, just knocks them away, is super beneficial. Magyar's has that.
Yeah.
I love that one a lot. And so I want to do something relatively related to that for Arcadia here.
Okay. One thing that I think is really cool about this is like again, character expression is one of the biggest things with these signatures, right? And this one in particular, I think you get a lot of opportunity to show like her size in comparison to this big swinging weapon. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. So a fun thing about Arcadia is that her whole kind of shtick is that she's not as big and bulky as all of our other Greatsword legends like Jaeun, Magyar, Mako. They're all kind of really, they're beefcakes, you know. They're ripped, like they're very large, or at least for characters in our game.
Yeah, you can understand why that strong character is carrying big weapon
Yeah.
versus her, who she's supposed to be a little bit on the tinier side.
Yeah, so for this legend, we wanted to kind of play at that juxtaposition of kind of a smaller character, but with like a almost comically large weapon. And so kind of playing into that, we wanted to make a lot of the signatures look like she's just really putting all of her body weight into it. Like she can just barely handle this big thing. And that also kind of plays into where her stats ended up being, where she's high dex, high attack. Like she really just kind of leans into every move she does. You know, she doesn't hold back.
Okay, and I'm seeing like again, this is a great opportunity to call out. This is the rig. This bald character is our rig that you animated to move about. Did you also animate like the facial expressions to kind of also help sell that like, oh, this is heavy and she's like closing her eyes and swinging, or is that just like happy coincidence? I don't know.
Yeah. I'll generally try to do expression passes as soon as I can. To kind of help convey the thought and emotion behind the moves as well. Oh yeah, there's a tail. So usually we don't show a tail on the rig. We have like a hidden layer inside the waist bone that has a tail in it for legends who have a tail. I like keeping it on all the time because the waist is often covered up by other body parts and it's just hard to click on.
Oh,
so I
okay.
use it as like a big handle, basically. Yeah.
That's smart. That's smart. Okay, let's go on to the next one because we already talked about the charge for this. What is this? We got. I think this is the trap. Yeah, this is the Greatsword trap. This is the early version where you did it all just kind of drawn out.
Yes. This is the first iteration of the new posing.
Okay.
The posing kind of went through a lot of iterations for these moves, and I think like the kind of arm up is what we ended up settling on. And this is also before we had decided on the final position, I think, for the traps as well. So this is basically me exploring, okay, maybe this pose would make more sense.
Okay. So that's a good question, right? Is so obviously she currently pulls back, and in my head I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's like the way to summon a ball of fairies and throw it at the ground. But like I'm assuming you tried other poses where maybe she just kind of like points at the ground or whatever. Like what exactly is going on there?
Yeah, I think there might be a gif of this later, but I think originally she had like the thing like in front of her, and then she kind of flung it out, but ended up kind of feeling unnatural. And also like a big thing in front of you can potentially convey threat when there isn't one. So we definitely want to avoid that kind of stuff. Whereas a big thing behind you, it's a bit more clear that you're like gonna send something.
Yeah, it's like a charge up.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's super cool. And I didn't realize that it went through a couple iterations. I'm also noticing you didn't write free above it, so.
Yeah, this was later in the process, so at that point everyone kind of got the gist.
Okay, they knew when it was free.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go on to the next one. Unless you have more things you want to say.
Let's keep going.
Okay. All right, spear. This is the side sig.
Oh yeah, that's just the miss.
On miss. Okay.
Yeah.
So
that's just to show the beetle goes back underground if you miss.
yeah. What was the? I mean, we have a bunch of animals that will sometimes come in. They don't always have a very clearly defined, I came in from this place and I leave from this place. What was the logic behind doing something like that versus like maybe a dissipation or whatever?
Right. So the idea behind this one is that it is a physical animal. It's not like Bodvar where he has like a spirit bear, or Kaya where she has a spirit mammoth. It's like it is a physical being that comes and goes. It's not this sort of ethereal thing.
Okay. So that you wanted to very clearly define like this was a real thing and it crawled up underneath her and then went out. Okay. That's cool. All right. Anything else you want to say?
Let's keep going.
All right. Got to give you all the chances you can. All right. This, I think, is the end sig.
Here we go.
Is this, I think, the charge version? Because I'm seeing some wings.
This one doesn't have a charge.
Oh,
variant.
it does. Okay, it doesn't have a charge.
It does have the on hit.
Okay.
Originally, this move didn't have an on hit. It would just play the whole thing the whole time. But then when we play tested it, we were like, this feels pretty sticky. It's a little too punishable. It's too big of a commitment. And so then we separated it from the hit and the miss portions for the following playtest. And we were like, oh, that's way better. And that's kind of how a lot of the process goes for a lot of these moves. We'll try one thing, discover issues with it, rework it a little bit, play test it again, and see how it feels from there.
Okay. And then let's talk about kind of what was some of the, what was your brain thinking about? All right, we were seeing the word charge.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. This one used to have a charge in the middle.
Okay. So after you miss or hit the first one, you could charge for the second one, kind of like a Koji side sig.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. That was the original idea, but it turns out it was kind of useless because unlike Koji side sword, you can charge it and your target is probably still in front of you. Whereas with an anti-air sig like this, if you miss the first swing, ain't no way your target's going to be anywhere near the second swing is. So having that charge in the middle kind of doesn't do anything for you.
Okay. Well, I do want to ask you about like what you were thinking about with this signature. Again, I know that when it comes to animating, especially like something like Spear, where it's been around for a while, there's a lot of different signatures that already are established for it. Like, what were you thinking about, like trying to make it different from already established Spear sigs, or hit a new spot, or do something that's good for Spear players?
Right, yeah. It's funny you bring that up because honestly, the more legends we add, the harder it gets to make new legends because it's like, we did that already. Well, we got to do something different. So for this one in particular, this was another situation where I'd be playing Spear and I'd be like, I really wish there was something that would hit up out of Sidelight or D-Light. Because there's a lot of SIGs that will hit out of those moves, but they'll send diagonally, or they'll send down, or they'll send at a slightly less optimal kill angle. And so that was my initial goal, making a neutral Spear sig for this character is, okay, we have, what 12 Spear legends, and none of them have a neutral sig out of D-Light that hits up? Like, surely now's the time. And so that's sort of where the idea started. And then for this particular animation, I kind of wanted to do something very kind of show-offy, kind of almost like a twirly baton. You know, what do you call that thing? What do you call those folks in high school?
Like a flourish? Oh, the color guard?
Color guard.
Is that right?
Kind of something like that. Yeah. Something very kind of flashy, fancy.
Yeah.
As opposed to like something more brutal where like, you know, Dusk Neutral Spear just kind of pokes up and yoinks you around. Something a little more, what's the word?
Extravagant.
Extravagant, flourishy, graceful.
Oh, yeah.
Something like that,
Those are some nice words.
Those are some words.
Thesauruses. To be clear, she's not the only Spear who does an upward hit, but it's the one that flows a little bit differently, right? Because like Hattori can spike straight up, but she has that downward thing, and then there's Mirage where she'll roll forward, and there's the multiple spikes up. So technically those all spike up, but she kind of flows differently.
Right, yeah, because Hattori, she has that forward motion and then goes up. Mirage moves forward, but then has like the spear things that come out of the ground. There's like this kind of, there were definitely gaps if you like kind of overlay those two moves. A lot of times I'll like, when I'm coming up with SIGs, I'll look at every Spear legend, turn on hitboxes, screen cap stuff, and like do little drawings of, okay, this area we haven't covered yet, this area we haven't covered yet. And that can kind of help us figure out where we can fill in these gaps. Because every time we make a new legend, I definitely am adamant about, okay, we got to give people a reason to use this legend. Why would they pick this legend over someone else? And so giving them options that no one else has is a great way of doing that.
Different coverage. I think, was it Vector or Reno that if you watch the behind-the-scenes video, there is a graphic that's basically what you're describing. You probably
one of those.
know worse than I do.
I do it almost every time. So
yeah, but I actually got the graphic and put it in a YouTube video. So if y'all at home are like, what is he talking about? One of those two YouTube videos on our Brawlhalla channel has essentially that graphic where it's like the character and then all the different SIGs that cover those spaces and then things like that.
I've seen people do that with like Koji too, and they're like, look at all this coverage, and I'm like, yeah, I know. Right?
I made that.
I didn't make Koji. That was before me. But
okay.
You get the idea.
Yeah. All right. Next up. Ooh, what is this? Is this a different version of the charge side?
Oh yeah, this is a charge variant for side sig that we didn't end up going with.
Okay.
So originally we weren't super sure about the projectile conceptually. We're like, does that really make sense here? And so we kind of toyed around with a couple of ideas. One of them was you just swing twice, and the second swing kind of propels you upward a little bit, and so you end in air. I think we didn't end up going with this one because it was another scenario where if you miss the first one, you're probably not going to hit the second one because it's like basically the exact same area, except like move forward a teeny bit more. Whereas like something like Koji's side sword has like a bigger step.
Yeah,
so it's
he
like,
steps forward into the second one.
Yeah, whereas this one it's almost completely overlapping, and so it ended up feeling kind of sticky, not super duper useful. Because not only does the second swing take longer, you're already committing to a big time commitment by charging the move at all. So you just ended up being stuck there too long, and it didn't feel good.
And then kind of to a point you made earlier, greatswords generally like to be on the ground, so ending in the air maybe feels a little bit more punishable because like you don't have the same toolkit that you usually want as a greatsword player.
Right. It's got one of the slower side airs. Nair comes out pretty quick, but it did leave you pretty vulnerable.
Okay, so that one got shut down. I assume in the playtest phase, or did it okay?
Yeah.
Next clip. What do we got? Ooh, this one doesn't even have the it does have the.
Oh, that's just a half rough version of the other one.
So this is like before you made the other one, where you still just kind of drawing it out.
Right.
So you can see that tap, and then you just go into your drawing of the second swing and how it would work.
Yeah, this one came after we did the neutral sig, where you kind of pop up with the wings come out, and we were thinking, oh, maybe we can have the wings come out on the charge variant for the side as well.
Okay.
So that's why the wings pop out there, and it ended up not making sense for the final one.
All right. That monitor's freaking out. Oh, okay, we got the lock-in. I'm actually a big fan of this lock-in. I didn't see it until we did the reveal, and I love it because it's another one of those situations where you show a lot of character. What can you tell me about this?
Yeah. So since our game has our characters pretty small on screen, this is the one opportunity we have to really show this is who this character is. This is what they're about. It's also the first impression. This is what you see when you go to the store or like the new legend page. This is the first impression. So we always find it really important to convey as much about the character as we can in this moment. So this sort of lounging pose she does with like her fairies kind of swarming around her kind of sets the tone of who she is. She's this sort of relaxed, at initially at least, kind of large and in charge, but physically small, kind of that fun juxtaposition at play there. And then when she lifts the sword out, she kind of struggles a little bit, or at least a lot more than, say, Magyar, who kind of just yoinks it out immediately because he's this giant armor golem of death. Whereas she kind of has to really put her weight into it to swing this thing around.
You can see the struggle of her trying to rip it out, and then she ends up leaning next to it.
Yeah, she ends up kind of overshooting and then catching herself again. Like, okay, I am in control of this. Let's go.
Yeah, that's awesome. Again, just another place where you can kind of show that characterization.
Exactly.
Anything else you want to say about the lock-in?
Let's keep rolling.
Did you do the lock-in?
I did.
Okay, because I was going to say sometimes it like shifts around, right? Like someone will do the SIG design, but someone else will do like a lock-in or
right. We'll generally have at least 2 animators on a legend at any time. We'll have the lead, and then we'll have the backup who will kind of help fill the gaps and help get things done. In this instance, I think I did everything character-wise. Yeah.
You're so cool and strong and smart.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to the next one. What is this? Are we back to the beginning? This looks like the side charge again.
Yeah, I think this is a rougher.
Okay.
I might have just sent you. I might have just sent you this gift twice.
That's fine. That's we get to say it again. Look at pinks. Did you decide on the colors early? I think from what I've heard, the colors went through a couple iterations. Did you pick the colors, or was that something that how'd that work?
So the effects folks will generally pick final colors. I went with pink here because it was visually very different from what we've done before, and also it can very quickly convey what's happening with very basic drawings.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Cool. Next one. Oh,
there we go. Yeah. So that's
upward trap.
Yeah. So that's the first iteration of the Greatsword D-Sig trap, because it had that different posing where it had the thing up front.
Okay.
And it had the free thing. That was back when I was like, hey, traps are a thing, remember? So yeah, this is version 1 of Greatsword D-Sig. And like I said earlier, that posing ended up changing because having the charge right next to the threat can be kind of confusing. It's like, oh, well, when do I go in? And this was the first attempt of separating the two D6 from spear and from greatsword. Like, okay, how can we make them different while still doing functionally the same task? And the first iteration of that is, well, let's just make one of them an anti-air. However, turns out for greatsword, you never send people up there. It ended up being
You just don't want to do that.
you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Like, that's a jump read only.
Yeah.
So like it ended up not being very useful. Like, for those who play greatsword, y'all would know pretty much every greatsword move puts you kind of like a little bit in front of somebody and just barely off the ground. So you almost never want a trap to be up here, because unless you hit it like frame one out of a dodge read or a jump, it's just not gonna not gonna hit it. And that's a big reason why like Yumiko's downhammer traps cover such a wide area, because if you have so much mobility in the air, it's in order to be useful, it needs to cover a pretty big area, whereas a smaller one in the air doesn't make a lot of sense in this scenario.
No, this is really interesting. It's a really interesting conversation, because it's like you're not just going in and saying, I want to trap and I want to make it different and cover this space, but you're also thinking about like, how does it play with the weapon that it's on, right? Because again, to the point about Greatsword, you want it back on the ground. Versus Hammer, you have all these different options. You have her N-Sig, you see people do nairs after it, you've seen like chase recovery, things like that. Like you have different options because of the weapon that you're using the trap with.
Yeah, that's a great point. And a lot of the times we'll look at SIGs between characters that are kind of similar, and we'll tweak them a little bit to synergize better with the weapon's light attack. Like you'll see, what's a good example? Arcadia's neutral greatsword compared to Jala's neutral sword a lot. One hits grounded, one doesn't hit grounded. And a big reason because of that is how it synergizes with the weapon's base kit. With a legend like Jala, you can do sword, downlight, and sig. I don't think it's true anymore, but it's
no,
like,
I think we made it one frame, I believe.
Yeah, if you get that one frame, all right. It's big. It's almost true. But you have that confirm out of a light attack, whereas with Arcadia Greatsword, you don't have that, because it hits straight up, and there's no Greatsword move that really does that, unless you like really read a dodge in or something. And so giving that one a little bit more of a generous threat area kind of helps compensate for that.
Yeah.
It makes it so it makes it a little more useful. Whereas with a weapon where you have a bread and butter confirm out of it, you wouldn't need that.
Cool. Nice. All right. Let's go to the next one. Side sig. This looks like a really early version.
Oh yeah, that's the first sketch of the side
Okay.
sig before we even knew if we wanted to do a charge variant or not. This was me saying, I just want to hit a guy in front of me.
You're like, hey, rest of the animation team, what if she just swung really, really hard forward?
Yeah, hear me out. She has a sword and she swings it.
So you came in early with that, and then I assume it just kind of stuck. People were like, yeah, I like the idea of hitting very hard.
Yeah, it turns out nobody hates it when you just have a move that hits real hard in front of you.
Yeah, that's crazy. I never would have thought that.
Right?
All right, next one.
Okay.
Also the lock-in. This is pre-rig. So this is, you knew early that you wanted to be like this comfort pose into pulling the sword out.
Right, yeah. And this is this is actually right around when we settled on what the final base skin would look like, because I sketched in her horns in her like ponytail thing. But like the arms across, the posing is a little different. So I was sort of kind of exploring how is she going to hold the sword. The arms crossed ended up feeling a little too awkward, so we ended up switching the hand positioning a little bit. But the general spirit behind it is the same of what ended up in final.
And then you added a little bit more character with like the sword pull out and the like emotion behind it.
Right.
All right. Here's what is going
go.
on here? Did she get a clone in one variant?
No, this is me saying, okay, she's on the ground now. What if she goes in the air instead, though? And like kind of overlaying them on top of each other so we can compare. I don't even remember if her wings come out on this sig.
I think they do.
Do they?
Someone, I don't know. I gotta admit, I have not had.
There's
time
a
to
lot
put
of
under her.
ones where it'll kind of go back and
you're like,
forth, and then yeah.
So I guess here's a random question: how'd you decide where she went vertically? Like that high in the air versus half a jump height versus 5 characters into the sky? Like how do you decide what is like a reasonable amount of jump?
So for this one in particular, we wanted the player to be lined up with where the target will end up when they get hit by that move.
Oh, okay.
So you can just GC and light, or just side air, or just follow up with whatever you want. Because ending up above that, you kind of can only do dare or ground pound, so it becomes less useful. Ending up below, if you're not on the ground, it can be trickier to line stuff up. Actually, a big reason why we ended up not doing grounded for the spear D-Sig is because it was too good.
It's too good.
It was too good. You could just do, you could really, really easily do D-Sig into D-Light Sayer, true 3-piece, just all the time. And it was like, all right, this maybe is a little.
That's literally like
it was a little too spicy. Let's see what else we can do here.
When I saw her and I started to play with her like close to release, I was like, can I downlight? That's the first thing I want to do. I was like,
you can
"Just let
still
me downlight."
do it if you hit it late.
Ah,
Basically, the way we'll balance traps a lot of times is we'll balance it with regards to you hit it frame 1. Because if you cast it and they run into it well after, then it's open season. You know, like that.
That's their own fault.
That's on them.
They saw the trap.
Yeah, they saw it and they still walked into it. So it's like, all right, you deserve whatever you get hit by.
All right, let's go next. Ooh.
Oh, here we go.
What is this?
Here's a rejected NSIG.
Okay.
I think the main reason I rejected this one, well, I animated it and then also rejected it. A lot of times I'll animate a thing and I'll be like, wait a minute, I don't really like this. Yeah. I think the main reason I ended up not going with this one is because A, it looks kind of goofy.
Okay.
It doesn't have that sort of color guard flair that the other one has. And B, it's functionally a little too similar to Fate Neutral Sight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Who I was also lead on, and I'll totally find myself every now and then making a move and being like, wait a minute, we already have this. I already did this.
And that's why we alternate animators.
Exactly. So yeah, this is one of the earlier brainstorm moves.
Okay.
And the final one ended up being a better fit for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, we had a conversation about this. Okay, so spoilers for y'all in chat. I'm working on a edited equivalent of this where I talked to Mike, and one of the things you mentioned with specifically the original design for the spear neutral sig is in playtest people were saying like it feels weird that it doesn't spike down.
Yeah. There was another iteration where she actually jumped up and then slammed down. It was kind of like Orion Neutral Spear, but it's sent up instead of down.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of folks are just like, well, the character animation is really similar to this one move, but it does this other thing, and you kind of expect it to do the thing that the other character does. And so it ended up not being a good fit for a lot of those reasons.
Okay, that's fair. All right, let's go on to the next one. NSIG charged.
Oh, here we go. This
got
one's
some wings, got
this
some
one's all
spirals.
Scrunched for some reason, but you
Yeah.
get the idea.
Resolutions are awkward.
Yeah. I think I exported this GIF at like super tall by super skinny.
Dude, sometimes it'll default to some weird stuff, and I'll be like, I didn't catch that when I exported my B.
Yeah, whatever. So yeah, this is one of the first moves we did. This was one of the ones from the initial spread, kind of the same, around the same time we settled on the Beetle. We were like, okay, let's think of cool ways to do charge variants. I definitely wanted a lot of charge variants in this legend in particular because both Reno and Moonin were more straightforward legends, kind of in the style of a lot of our older legends where you kind of just hit a guy and that's it, which is great. A lot of people like that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people like this kind of fancier tech that we'll add to moves as well. And so a cool way to kind of differentiate that is showing sometimes she has wings, sometimes she doesn't. So like you'll see the wings pop out on the charge variant, and that's when you know, okay, now I'll get the upper version instead of the one that kind of just pokes upwards and keeps you grounded.
That's a good way to kind of signify that you've hit the charge threshold as well.
Yeah. Telegraphs for both the player and the opponent. It's always really important to telegraph. Okay, now you're going to get this one. So
now it's a different threat.
It feels fair. You're not caught super off guard.
Yeah. Did you do the wings, or is that something that goes over to effects? Like,
I only did these really sketchy wings.
okay.
FX makes everything look nice.
Pretty much, I want this, and then they make it look nice.
The only final stuff I do is the on-rig stuff.
Okay.
The Brawl Boy animation.
You do the shaping. Okay.
Yep.
Let's look at this one. Another spear one. Okay. It looks like saw this a little bit earlier.
Oh yeah, it's the same exact one. I just sent you that one twice.
We talked about the Greatsword charge up, right, where it's pulled back. Was that already like an idea for the spear one? Like, did you try some other ones where she like charges it up in front of her as well, or was it just always like we're gonna have it back here and we're gonna throw it in front?
I think this one I had it back here because I kind of wanted it to feel like a magic wand in a lot of ways, like you're casting a thing, whereas I couldn't really do that with Greatsword because it's this big heavy thing, and having her kind of swing it around to conjure something didn't really make a lot of sense.
That would be so fun.
It would be fun, but it kind of fought at the theme of
absolutely
this thing is really heavy.
Yes. And it's very heavy for her in particular.
Oh wait, this one is different. You go a little bit forward. I think we ended up not going with this one is because after you hit the move, you and the guy you hit are like right next to each other, and it got kind of hard to tell
which one's which.
Yeah, yeah.
Generally, if you both do an attack and clash out, and you get confused.
Yeah, yeah. Generally, we want to try to avoid characters like overlapping a ton after you hit somebody because it becomes unclear. You kind of lose where you are. It gets confusing.
Yeah, for both the player and the opponent.
Yep.
Okay. Charged up higher and then into the air for
here we go.
The release.
Yeah, yeah. This was another one that we kind of tried out. But again, turns out having a trap way up there when you have the Greatsword kit that doesn't send anyone up there, not very useful. And it pops up, so when it hits, they're even farther away.
Like, okay, you just helped them out. That's a save your teammate sig only.
Yeah. Turns out not super useful to have only save teammate sigs.
Did y'all try anything different? Like maybe like have it pop down? Like, because most of our traps so far, they pop up. Did you try anything like where it like pops down, pops straight forward?
I think
just locks them in place.
I think we tried one where we locked them in place very briefly, but it kind of just felt bad, and it was hard to tell if you actually got hit.
Okay.
Because a lot of the times, players would dodge in place. They would spot dodge. And since they're in the same spot that they would be in if they got hit, it was hard to tell if they got hit at all.
Yeah.
Or they'll like spot dodge and then get caught by like the last frame, and they'll be like, "Wait, what? I spot dodged. Why can't I move right now?" And they won't recognize that, oh, they're in hit stun because they're players in the same position. So, and when I was kind of like figuring out how to bring traps back to SIGs, I looked at Yumiko as kind of a start, and one thing her SIGs do great is it pops up. It's super clear when you get hit, and so that pop-up motion is super helpful from a feedback standpoint. You can kind of see exactly what's going on.
Yeah, everyone knows exactly that person got hit.
Yep.
Okay. Let's go to the next one. Looks like 2 swings, but not in the air for the charge version of the Greatsword side.
Yep. I think the aerial one was trying to solve the problem of it feeling too sticky, like it keeps the player in place too long. But ended up not being super successful at that, and so the projectile version ended up winning out.
Okay. Cool. I'm not sure if there's much else you want to say about this.
Let's keep rolling.
All right. Neutral sig, is this just the tap version? Is this the... Okay.
Yep. This is, just rough animation for the tap version. I wanted to convey that it hit grounded, whereas the charge doesn't. This is a sig where a lot of the times when I'll make charge variants, I don't want to just do, it's the same move but better. I wanted to kind of, for this one in particular, I wanted to kind of give the player a distinct choice to make. There are scenarios where you want to stay on the ground and get that grounded hitbox. And there are scenarios where you want to go higher and forego the grounded hitbox so you can get that extra height.
Okay, cool. And then I see that you had a little flourish on the ground, this like explosion out. Did that kind of, was that specifically to show, oh, this hits grounded, or was that just like because you like drawing some stuff? Or
a little bit of both.
Okay.
Mostly to show like, yeah, this hits grounded, but turns out having a big splash on an NSIG is a bit gratuitous, so we ended up scrapping it. It hits pretty stacked, and a lot of the times when we'll make a neutral sig, it hitting grounded or not can often be kind of a sticky. It can be a hot topic. Like, oh, should this hit grounded?
I got some strong feelings about it. I'm not going to share them here. But
yeah. A lot of the times it's like, okay, well, how does grounded options synergize with the weapon? How fast is it? How much end lag does it have? How much horizontal priority does it have? And we kind of take all those things into consideration. Basically, you don't want a sig that just feels like you should just do this all the time.
Like that's your god sig, and that's the one that you always press.
Yeah.
We want the situations.
We want to avoid that. So as long a lot of times when a sig hits grounded, it's like, okay, it's serving its purpose a little bit better than if it didn't hit grounded. And Greatsword neutral is one of those scenarios.
Okay. That's right. I mean, you already talked a little bit earlier about how it compares to like maybe Jawless, which doesn't hit grounded, and like the reasoning behind it. So I give a lot of credit to that. I think this is the same thing. Is it different? I pressed the next button. I'm not.
Oh yeah, that's just I probably just sent you the same one again.
That's totally okay. Did I press the next button again? Nope. Okay, hold on. Let me try it one more time.
This might be the end.
Am I bugging? Am I bugging? We've done it.
We done it. We're
and
done.
on time because it's 1:56.
Sweet. Oh, we don't have time to play games.
Wow. Unfortunate. You know what? We got to pull you in for one of those. But we got some time for questions. Before we get to that, I'm pretty sure I skipped over the whole, like, we got to talk about World of Brawlhalla thing. So real quick, Brawlhalla.com/Prime. I'm going to let y'all know that. We got that Prime Gaming bundle. There's also tournaments. Crew Battle just ended, but coming up next, we announced mid-series Twitter.com/pro Brawlhalla, I think, has the information for the mid-series Spec Ops bundle. Also sign up for Spring Championship. That's the next championship that's going to be open. Steel Series is coming up. That's invite only. Yes, I got to say all those things.
Cool.
Sorry, I forgot. I was so excited to talk to you.
It's a good spiel. Go for it.
I had to get those out.
Yeah.
Brawlhalla.com/schedule to find out when all those things happen. All right, quick chat. If you have questions, again, lead animator, you did a couple of characters. You did Reno. You did Arcadia. You did. I'm just gonna start naming characters with wings. Onyx. You did Vector. You did. Did you do Bryn?
I didn't do Bryn.
Bryn
Bryn was way before me.
You did Zariel.
Zariel was my first one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Chat. What do y'all have questions wise for Mike here? I'm gonna reiterate that question so that chat can hear it because they can't hear production. But does the animator have to think about the sizing of the hitboxes when making the signatures?
Oh, absolutely. That's like first thought. Okay, no, that's like second thought. But it's super early in the process. Because the whole point of a sig is to hit in a certain area, so that's very clearly comes up early in the process. You can make a move look super good, but if it doesn't hit in a useful area, then what's the point,
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
All right. Somebody is asking, how long does it usually take when animating a character?
From nothing to done, months. Several months.
Quite a long time.
This character in particular took a little longer. I know some of y'all noticed. It's been a hot minute since Moonin. This one took pretty long in particular because it was re-exploring or really exploring things that we hadn't done before in this way. And so we spent a lot of time on the traps, getting the feel right.
He's coming with this. I'm not sure what.
What is this?
I got to let you know, Toast, I'll tell you about this, but this wasn't working.
Yeah, no, I think.
Okay.
What? Okay. What, are we drawing pictures here?
Do you want to art it up? Guys, if y'all don't know, Mike streams on his personal stream at Metagame Mike, and you actually do a lot of art, like just like not even like 2D animation art, but you just kind of draw like your dog. He does stickers, things like that, a lot of Pokemon stuff. So you got to give a lot of love to Mike, and of course, when we have an artist on, we got to get that so that we can cut it out and put it on the wall.
I drew a dog. Can you see it? There it is.
Oh, can you see his corgi? Can we get like a zoom in on that?
Enhance.
Maybe.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
It's a little blown out, but you can see it. We might need a better marker for the next one.
That's perfect.
It's okay. You can tell. That's your dog, Starfox,
This is
right?
a dog. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't streamed in months. Maybe I will again one day. Who knows?
Some questions. These questions aren't really questions for Mike, but I'll let y'all know. Is there another character in the making right now? We're always working on stuff. Always working on everything.
The answer is always yes. Are we working on A? The answer is always yes.
We're always working on stuff. How long is the stream going to be? I think we're actually coming up on time. Oh, we're good, actually. We finished out. Let's get one more good question. Any tips for 2D animation?
Keep it loose, especially if you're starting out. I think a lot of folks will sweat the details a little too much. They'll try to like really get these precise, clean lines too early. And animation's all about motion. Drawing loose, also all about motion. Look at classic Disney animator Glenn Keane. His roughs are really rough. It looks like he just drew it with like a charcoal stick, but they're gorgeous drawings because you can feel the energy behind them. And so kind of forcing yourself to keep things loose can really help capture a lot of that energy.
Awesome. Well, Mike, I think that's going to do it for time. I want to thank you so much for coming on. We need to get you on to play games.
Yeah.
We got to figure out a time where you can do that, because I know you wanted to do some today.
Yeah,
But,
next time.
Thank you again, chat. Give love to Mike. You can find him on Twitter at MetaGameMike. You can find him at Twitch at MetaGameMike. And, of course, thank you all for watching. Hopefully that was informative. We got dev streams every week, Monday, Tuesday, Friday. You can find all that good information at brawlhalla.com/schedule. Y'all know the deal. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your day.